I had just moved to a quiet town in upstate Pennsylvania, the kind of place that barely shows up on a map. My company had opened a small branch office there, and I was one of the first employees sent to help get it running. It wasn't exactly my dream assignment, but the pay was decent and the area was cheap, so I figured, why not? The rental house I found sat at the very edge of town, where pavement gave way to dirt roads and the houses thinned out. Beyond my backyard stretched a wide patch of woods. In the winter, when the trees were bare, I could just make out another structure sitting across the tree line. It was a house, but not like any other on the block. Its roof sagged, shutters hung loose, and most of the windows were covered with sheets of plywood. Even from a distance, it looked wrong, like it had been abandoned for decades. When I asked the landlord about it during the walkthrough, she avoided eye contact. She just said, "Don't worry about that place. Nobody's lived there for years." But later, at the grocery store, I casually brought it up again to the cashier, a woman in her 50s with a thick local accent. She gave me a strange look and lowered her voice. "You rented that house? Out by the trees? Then you'll see the other one at night. Just keep your curtains shut." At first I laughed, but she wasn't joking. The first few weeks went by normally. I spent most of my time working, unpacking, and trying to get used to the isolation. At night, it was too quiet. No traffic, no sirens, not even crickets sometimes. One night, around 12:30 a.m., I was lying in bed when I heard it for the first time. A whistle. Not a song I recognized, just a simple, uneven tune. 3 notes, pause, 3 notes again. It carried faintly through the trees, like someone whistling while they walked. I sat up and listened hard. Then silence. I told myself it had to be the wind, or maybe some teenager messing around. But when I went downstairs the next morning, I noticed my living room curtains had been shifted open. I could have sworn I left them closed the night before. The second time, it happened around the same hour. Same whistling, drifting closer. I turned off my bedside lamp and crept toward the window, heart pounding. The woods looked empty, but I swear, I saw a flicker of light inside the abandoned house across the tree line. A faint yellow glow, like a lantern or candle. It lasted only a few seconds before it went dark again. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. The next day, I mentioned it to my coworker, a guy named Tom who had grown up in the area. He stopped what he was doing and gave me this uneasy smile. "You don't want to mess with that house. Kids around here used to dare each other to go inside. Some swore they saw someone looking back at them through the upstairs window. The sheriff's been called a dozen times, but every time they check it, there's no one there. It's one of those places." He chuckled to lighten the mood, but his eyes told a different story. From then on, every creak in the floorboards, every flicker in the dark put me on edge, and the whistling, it only got louder. The whistling became a pattern. Not every night, but often enough that I couldn't ignore it anymore. One Tuesday, I came home from work late. It was already dark when I pulled into the driveway. As soon as I stepped out of my car, I felt it, the sense that someone was watching. The woods loomed silently at the edge of my property, and I found myself staring at that old house again. Its broken windows, its leaning frame, and for the briefest moment, I thought I saw movement in one of the windows, a shadow pulling back behind the boards. I went inside fast, locked the door, and pulled the curtains shut. That night, I tried something new. I left my phone recording audio while I slept, just to prove to myself that I wasn't imagining the noises. When I played it back the next morning, most of the file was silence. But around 12:45, clear as day, I heard it. The whistle. Not faint anymore. Closer. Much closer. And after it stopped, there was another sound. A tapping. 3 slow taps, right against my living room window. The police came that evening after I showed them the audio. They walked around the house, checked the woods with flashlights, but found nothing. "Probably kids messing with you," one officer said, but his partner didn't look so convinced. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat in the living room with the lights off, baseball bat in hand, eyes locked on the curtains. Around 1 a.m., I heard it again, the whistle. Louder this time, inside the yard. My heart hammered in my chest. Slowly, I reached up and parted the curtains just enough to peek outside. At first, I saw nothing, just the yard, the driveway, the dark outline of the woods. But then I froze. On the ground, just below the window, were footprints. Fresh ones, pressed into the dirt. They led out of the woods and directly up to my house. I let the curtain fall back into place, locked every door twice, and sat there till sunrise. The following weekend, I finally got the courage to ask one of my neighbors about the abandoned house. She was an older woman who had lived on the block for decades. When I mentioned the whistling, her face went pale. She looked over my shoulder at the woods, as if making sure no one was listening. "You should leave," she whispered. I asked her why, but she only shook her head. "People who pay attention to that house, they don't stay here long. Some disappear altogether." I wanted to laugh it off, but deep down, I knew she wasn't just telling an old folk tale. A few nights later, everything escalated. The power went out around midnight. At first, I thought it was a storm, but the sky was clear. I tried my phone, 18% battery. Not enough to last the night, that's when I saw it. Through the gaps in the curtain, faint light flickered in the woods. Not a flashlight, not a car. It was softer, older, like the glow of a lantern swinging side to side. And it was moving, slowly, toward my house. I backed away from the window, my whole body shaking. The whistling started again, closer than ever, echoing across the yard. Then came the tapping. This time, not just one window, every window, one by one, tap, tap, tap. As if someone was circling the house, dragging their fingers along the glass. I grabbed the baseball bat, phone in my other hand, and dialed 911. My voice was trembling as I whispered what was happening. Halfway through giving my address, the call dropped, my phone battery had died, and the house fell into silence. But I wasn't alone. I could hear it, the floorboards creaking upstairs, slow, deliberate steps. Someone was inside. The creaking overhead didn't stop. It was slow, deliberate. It was slow, deliberate. Whoever was in my house wasn't trying to be quiet. They wanted me to hear. I gripped the bat tighter, backing against the wall of the living room. My chest felt like it was going to cave in. Every instinct screamed at me to run, but my legs wouldn't move. The steps reached the end of the upstairs hallway. Then, silence. I held my breath, straining to listen. And then, creak, the first step on the staircase. Someone was coming down. I bolted for the kitchen, my hands fumbling through drawers until I found a flashlight. I flicked it on, the beam slicing through the darkness. "Who's there?" I shouted, my voice shaking. The steps stopped halfway down. For a moment, the house was so silent I could hear my own heartbeat. Then, from the shadows of the stairwell, a voice answered. Low, raspy, almost playful. "You hear it, too." I froze. My grip on the flashlight slipped and the beam flickered across the wall. "What do you mean?" I managed to whisper. The voice chuckled. "The whistle. That was enough." I sprinted to the back door, yanked it open, and ran into the yard. My bare feet hit the grass as I tore across the lawn toward my car, but I never made it. From the tree line, the lantern light appeared again. Swinging slowly, back and forth, a figure stood there. Tall, gaunt, its face hidden behind some kind of mask, and as I froze in terror, it raised its hand to its mouth and whistled. That same haunting tune, the one that had been tormenting me for weeks. Behind me, the door slammed shut. Whoever was inside my house was still there, and now, someone else was watching from the woods. My mind raced. Was it 2 people? More? I did the only thing I could think of. I ran toward my neighbor's house. My fist pounded on her door until she finally opened it, her eyes wide with fear. "You saw it, didn't you?" she whispered, pulling me inside. I was shaking too hard to answer. She locked the door behind me and led me into her living room. On the table sat an old, yellowed newspaper. She pushed it toward me with trembling hands. The headline made my blood run cold. Local family vanishes after midnight whistle. The article was from nearly 30 years ago. Same neighborhood, same woods, same neighborhood, same woods, same abandoned house. The story told of a family of 4 who reported hearing strange whistling around their home. One night, they all disappeared. Police never found bodies, only footprints leading from the house into the forest. The neighbor leaned in close, her voice barely a whisper. They say the whistler takes notice when you listen too long, when you acknowledge it, and once it enters your home, it never leaves. I shook my head in disbelief. But it's real. There were people in my house. She looked at me with eyes full of pity. They're not people. Not anymore. That night, I stayed in her guest room. I thought I was safe, but around 2 a.m., I woke to the sound I dreaded most, the whistle. This time, coming from inside her house. And just outside the door, slow footsteps dragging across the floorboards. The last thing I remember is the handle turning, ever so slightly. Then, darkness.